Okay. Yeah. Now, Bezos Hashem, tonight we'll learn a little more. Is that okay? Hold on. 8:30 or 8:30. Okay. We're slowly okay. Today we're going to start Me'amam and Beis. That's Tana Rabbanan on the second line from the top. 40B. We're 4 pages behind. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's because of our learning, we should have the basic English. The Tana Rabbanan was taught in a brisa. Someone that says, Asisi pleni avdi ben chayrin. I have made so-and-so, the slave, free. We're going to see soon that it was written in a document. This wasn't just that he's claiming that. Yeah, this is a document. Asli ben chayrin. He is made free. Different expressions here. Harehu ben chayrin. Behold, he is free. Harehu ben chayrin. So the slave is free. There's a document that says that. It's all good. Aseno ben chayrin. I will make him free. Rebbe Americana, Chamer Laikana. Rebbe says that when you write that in a document, that's considered as the expression itself of making him free. I will make him free means with this document, I am making him free. Means I am making him free. When you say I will, it means I am. And Chachamim say, no, that's just like a promise, and people don't always keep their promises. Well, Rabbi Yochanan says, obviously, all of these were written in a document. And that's when, even though it says Ha'omer, someone that says, but it actually means that he wrote it. Tan Rabbanan, said in a brisa, Ha'omer nasati said the plainis leplaini. Someone says, I have given the field, such and such a field, to so-and-so. This is also going to be a document. And which means that this is a document of being mizakeh, of a matana, of giving a gift to someone. The sunnah leplaini, this field is given to him. So harehu shalai, the field is his. Oh, I'm sorry. Harehu shalai, the field is his. Harehu shalai, the field is his. That means he wrote the field is his. The halacha is the field is his. Yeah, one was the statement and one was the halacha. Etnena leplaini, I will give it to so and so. Rameir Americana v'chachamim laikana. Then Reb Meir says that is an expression of giving it over, and the Chacham say it's not an expression of giving it over; it's just a promise, and the promise doesn't do it. Doesn't do it because not necessarily is he going to keep the promise. Okay. Next. Rabbi Yochanan says that all of this we're talking about that it was all written in a document. Okay. Rashi has an interesting pshat, but it doesn't. Rashi says that there's a problem with it. First one was a case of a slave that's going free. Second one is a case of a field that's being given as a gift.
Yeah, what is technically one because it's karka and the other because it's what kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The way it's given.
Sure. Next case is Tana Rabbanan.
Oh, Rabbi Yochanan yet?
We did Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says it's all in a document. For both cases.
The owner's oral statement.
Right.
Oh, so that's what he does.
Tana Rabbanan Ha'omer Asisi pleni avdi ben chayrin. Okay, now it gets complicated. Someone says, I have made my slave, so-and-so, my slave, free. The slave says, Layasani, you didn't make me free. So he's contradicting what the master says. Master says, I have made so-and-so the slave free. He didn't tell it to him directly. He says, I have made him free. But when he asked the slave, he said, I was never made free. That's not a real problem, because maybe the slave never heard about it, because he gave the document to someone else, to a third party, and the third party acquired it on his behalf. And what's the rule? That you can acquire something on behalf of someone else if it's for his benefit, right? We did have a Gemara before which said that it could be not for his benefit, but where was that Gemara? Yeah.
He had an opinion that wasn't.
Yeah, it was Yud Beis. Yud. The Chachamim hold by Shechruri Avadim and Zachanad. It's the opinion of the Chachamim that it is to their benefit. Rav Meir held no, but the Chacham held that it was to his benefit. So, Kasavti ben Asati lai. Let's say the person claims, the master claims, I wrote the document and I gave it to him. He didn't write it for me and he didn't give it to me. Then we say, if he agrees that he's still a slave, that's like 100 witnesses, and it's considered that he's still a slave. How can you trust him if he's a slave? Interesting question. Oh, and the master can go and reacquire him as a slave and just take him back and work with him. Someone says, I've given such and such a field to so-and-so, and the fellow says, the recipient says, I never received anything. We suspect that maybe it was given through a third party and he acquired it on his behalf. Let's say the person says, I have written it and given it to him. But he says, he didn't write it and he never gave it to me. So then we say, we say that he hasn't received it and the original owner can go and take it. Now the Gemara has an interesting point. While the original owner goes and takes it, but who should be eating the fruit here? Who should be taking the produce? Rav Chisda says that the original owner eats the fruits. Rabba says they have to give the fruits to a third party. And the Gemara explains, depends. If the father says that I never received it, so then it would obviously go back to the original owner. Because the father who says that he's the recipient is claiming that he never got it. He never gave it to me. The person's claiming not that he gave it to a third party. The person's claiming, I gave it to you. The person says, you never gave it to me. So he must be mistaken. But if it's not the father, if it's the son that's claiming you never gave it to my father, so then we say that maybe that he just doesn't know. Therefore, we should have to give it to the fruits to a third party in the interim till we find out, because maybe someone's going to come along and say, yeah, he did give it to your father. So there's no machlekes here between Rabba and Rav Chisda, because it depends on the scenario. Didn't say a bracha yet. Right. That doesn't mean that you drink.
Right, so
what does that mean? Someone isn't sure if you said a bracha. You should not say a bracha just to be sure. But should he drink or should he not drink?
So you want to drink.
I don't know, you have to try to avoid that. Get it something else to say a bracha.
It's not really. It doesn't really look like that.
How do you know what bracha to say on chocolate covered nuts?
But you want the chocolate.
Right. Some say it depends what store you buy it in. You buy it in a nut store or in a chocolate store. Okay, we have a new Mishnah. Yeah,
You
I
have
came
to-
in from
You have
the
to come in the second.
gate was broken. Yeah. The exit gate. Okay. Evet Shasar Rabba Apaitki La'achirim. Let's say Ruvain owes Shimon money, and Ruvain has a slave. So he's not sure if he's going to be able to pay Shimon back with cash. So he says, when you come to collect this slave that I have, it's like mortgage to you. That's from this is what you're going to collect your debt, tells to Shimon. So then, then he sets him free. He sets him free. So there goes the collateral, or the collateral. It's the mortgage. There goes the mortgage. So Shura Sadin, according to the rule, Eina Evet Chayav Klum. Slave that should not owe anything. Only thing is, but just to be sure, we force the master. Here, let's learn it. That we force the second master. Yeah, first master set him free. Second master, Shimon, we force him, the one that was supposed to use the slave, collect the debt. He has to also set him free. And he has to write a document for his value. Now, who's supposed to write the document? Sounds like the slave is supposed to write a document that he's going to owe this. He went free based on someone else's debt. Let's see. Let's see in the Gemara. It's a little complicated. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel in a case of El Meshacher, he doesn't write the document. The one that set him free has to write the document. He's the one that owed the money, and he's the one that got rid of the mortgage. He's the one that has to write the document that says that he owes Shimon, the one that lent him the money, and he's not paying him back because he just let his slave free. He's the one that has to write the document. The Gemara is going to explain all of this. It's going to be a machlekes almost about every line here. The slave that the master made him an apaitiki. Apaitiki is like a mortgage. It's a compound word. Apaitiki or something. It should stand from this. This is what you're going to collect from. Mi Shichrei, who was the one that set the slave free? Amar Rav. Rav says Rabbi Rishon, the first master. That seemed to be obvious, right? He was the master. Well, Shura Sadin, according to the rule, Ein Eved Chayav Klum, slave is not chayav anything. LeRabbi Sheni, to the second master. Why? Because he's a free man. Kidarava, like Rava says, Damarava hektish chametz v'shicher mafkim midei shivat. Let's say someone Reuven owes Shimon money, and he's supposed to give him items that he owns as a payment. Supposed to give him chametz. Supposed to pay him in whiskey or beer or some grain or something that's chametz, bread, or shicher, or he has a slave that he's supposed to pay him with. What he does is he's makdish the items, the food that he has, that beer, whatever becomes Pesach. Or shicher, he sets the slave free. That takes out from the mortgage. It means that he released it without having any consequences. He released the mortgage from being under that lien.
Question. Yeah. Previously, we had the question of the Makdish or Meshachar a slave, and I believe the answer was that in Makdish it had to do with not the slave's body, but its value. Here we're talking about money, and since the beginning starts off with this, why didn't they continue and add in there the Eved instead of go to Meshachar Eved? Because it would instill the same interpretation. But if you made the Eved at this, his value at this, it doesn't touch it.
Yeah, very good. Rashi says that when I said items, it's not correct. It's supposed to be an ox, that he had an ox that makdish means, doesn't mean that he was makdish something for the benefit. So makdish something
Oh,
for the
mamash,
mizbeach,
like a korban.
be a carbon. Yeah, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you for pointing that out. So,
I deserve a piece of chocolate.
yeah, shackle height. So, elam of Beitikon Olam, because of to fix the world for the benefit of society. Maybe the second master is going to see him in the market. The Yomale is going to say, Avdiata, you're my slave. So Kaifin this Rabbi Sheni Vaisis Ben Chaim, we force the second master to make him free. The case of Eved Shtar al Dama. And then the slave writes a document for his value. Now, why does the slave write the document? Because the slave had just benefited from this. Let me see what your commentary says. The slave owns his own value to the creditor. The slave gained from this transaction. However, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Ein eved kaisev ela meshacher kaisev." The slave does not write a promissory note for the value. Rather, his first master, who emancipated him, writes a promissory note and then pays the value of the slave to the creditor. The master designated the slave to be used for payment. Yeah, so it's interesting why the slave ends up with this. I assume, why does the slave end up with that? I assume that it has to do with that if someone benefits from someone else, he's supposed to pay him for the benefit, for at least the benefit that he received. If someone does work for someone, even though the person never told him to do that for him, you go over to someone's house and you paint it. You see it needed paint. Then you go to the guy and you give him the bill. The guy says, I never asked for this. So he says, well, I still benefited you. So, pay me the lowest price that you would get for this, but I still gave it to you. So you have to pay for the lowest price. Right?
We also went at the other day for the story with the guy gave him just gave him something, and the guy took it, and they said, "Did you say some word?" And he said no, and then some other Rav came and saw that Rabbi, whoever was sad. He said, "Why are you sad?" And he said, "Because they let the guy have." He just
Robert made a loan to one of his students, and then the students came to pay.
Oh, he
to pay
said,
him.
"You don't have to pay
Yeah.
me." And then the student still took it. And then Rabbi was sad. And then another Rabbi came by and then said, "Why are you sad?" And he said, "Because and they all had to do with how to mention, like just because somebody says, I'll pick, yeah, that's, I did teach it. Just because he says, I'll pick up the tab, doesn't mean if you were planning on picking up the tab, you shouldn't." And say, "Oh, okay, you pick up the tab." So this student who heard Rabbi say, "Oh, it's okay, you can have," he was saying, "Yeah, I mentioned it, but still expected the student not to take it." You don't listen to on Zoom to my share. That's obvious.
I read it through, but I don't remember it as well as when I teach it.
Just have to watch this shit.
Okay.
Word mentions that it could only be collected.
Hillel is pointing out that an apaitiki means that you only collect from that, not from other property. Now, if that's the case, then maybe that's why the debt stays attached to the slave, and the slave is the one that should be paying for his freedom, his value.
Slave runs away.
The whole case of the South,
Georgia, so he was running away to freedom, which is Florida. He would round up like a posse, go after, and come back with a bunch of runaway slaves. But if it was a swamp, they couldn't get it. It was on Seminole. We had a whole group
Oh, really?
black Seminoles.
So interesting.
And then they were exiled by the U.S. Army when the Indian Wars, sent to Oklahoma. So we have these black Seminole mixture of people in Oklahoma. One of them was my student. His great-great-grandfather was in that march.
Is he considered an Indian, or does he get the property and all of that?
Well, the property they got in Oklahoma, the worst of the worst. When they came back to Florida, now it's all built up. It wasn't a state thing. So they were emancipated. They were emancipated when they lived in Florida with the Seminoles. Once they got captured by the army, then they were Indians, worse than slaves.
What's the correct reference?
What's
That's
inside
on
it?
the outside, some chocolate inside.
I would say chocolate. For me, it would be the chocolate. And,
Why would you eat it though?
What?
Why would you eat it in the first place?
and then there is an opinion that says that chocolate's supposed to be high, but no one goes like that. No, because it's coconut.
Wow.
Anyway, okay. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Ein eved kaisev ela meshacher kaisev." It's not the slave that writes it; it's the one that owes the money. It's Reuven. What are they arguing about? They're talking about if someone damages someone else's shibud, someone else's mortgage. I don't know if it's technically it's a small tree. It's taller than me.
Right. You know, okay, they treat it like a wood. It's a tree because it's solid or it's
Well, Mar Savar, this master holds Chayev. Mar Savar Pater. Now, question is, Shimon ben Gamliel, he's the one that says that the first master damaged the collateral of his friend, so he would be the one that says Chayev. And the Tanakama here would say that the first master is Pater, and it's just the slave that's Chayev. So slave is Chayev, but not really because he damaged something. The slave is Chayev because he benefited. It's a different sort of Chayev. Okay, Itmar Nami. We have another statement of Amirayim. It says, "Amazik shibudi shel chavei Rabbanan machlekes Reb Shimon ben Gamliel v'Rabbanan." Exactly what we just said. We have a statement from Amirayim that when you have him, someone damages someone else's mortgage, so that is a machlekes between Tanaim, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and the Rabbanan. Ula has a different shot. Now, it's going to be a difference here between Rav and Ula. Okay. Ula is later than Rav. Ula Amar, Ula says, Mishech, right? Ula was the traveler. Chart under it's not under logo. Ula says, who is the one that freed this, emancipated the slave? That was the mortgage. Is that the correct word? Mortgage the property. Mishechre. It says, Ula says, Rabbi Sheni. It was the second master. That means Shimon. Right? Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, and he tells him, you're going to collect from the slave. Now, the second master frees him. Shura Sadin, the rule is, according to the rule, Ein Eved Chayev Klum b'mitzvahs. The slave is not free. Ein Eved Chayev Klum doesn't mean monetarily. Here, according to Ula, the slave is not chayev in mitzvahs. Now, the word klum is a little bit of a problem because he is chayev in the mitzvahs of a isha. Whatever a woman is chayev in, the slave is also chayev. But it says he's not chayev, which basically means he's not chayev anything more than what he used to. because the second master didn't own him, he can't make him free. But because of the fixing of the world for the society benefit, because he was already considered free, he was called that he's free. We forced the first master to free him. Exactly the opposite story. Because the second master freed him, first master says, I'm going to give you this Eved as a slave. As a slave, he's going to be as a collection of your debt. Second master says, I'm not taking a slave as a debt, I'm going to free him, and he frees him. And now he doesn't actually free him because he doesn't own him yet, never paid back yet. So, but because he was called free, we forced the first master to go and free him. Now what happens? Now the first master has to write, what's the aleph? Bach says Kaisiv Eved Shtar al Damav. I'm not sure if you have to learn it like that. I thought maybe you could learn the first master writes a document for the extra money that he didn't pay back. You know, the second master is the one that really lost it because he freed him. But what about if that wasn't the full debt? Is there anything extra? No.
Because he's losing.
So it's
So
the
this way he gets
slave.
partial payment in
The slave has to write his value to who? To the first master?
No.
Second master freedom. The first master is being forced to free him. So he has to write his value to the first master. To the first master. Now, what about the debt? He had to pay the debt anyway. So it must be his value that's more than the debt. That's what I mean. But but the second master freed him. Why should he have to pay the first master? If the first master doesn't have to pay the debt. First master didn't lose anything, unless the slave was worth more than the debt. Could be. Could be. And that's what would be here. That's what Rashi seems to be saying. That's Reuven and Shimon. First master, the debtor is the one that
It's like creditor.
Yeah, so that would be the creditor is Shimon, but is Reuven borrows money from Shimon. Reuven Malva and the Leva. Shimon is the Malva, Reuven is the Leva. So who's the creditor is Shimon. Is the creditor the same as the debtor? No, the debtor would be Reuven.
I have to say I'm confused. Oh, you can't hear me.
Debtor owes the money.
The debtor owes the money. So Reuven is the Reuven owes the money, and Shimon is the banker, is the lender. He's the creditor.
The slave.
The slave is the mortgage, the collateral.
So the one who frees the slave has to pay for his.
The one who freed the slave, in this case, was Shimon, was the creditor. So the only thing is what he did didn't really work. So we go back and we force the debtor to now free his own slave, but he doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to pay up the debt because it was already Shimon lost it. He lost the place.
But he has to write the star, the slave.
But the slave has to write a star of the extra value.
IOU, which he doesn't.
The extra
But I owe you $10,000.
Right.
Yeah, goodbye.
But it's not that he owes him $10,000. The debt was $10,000. The slave was worth $11,000. The slave says that I owe Reuven, that was forced to free me, $1,000 because that's the extra that I gained over the debt that he doesn't have to pay.
What if it's the same amount?
And he doesn't have to write anything. It's the same amount.
The guy never got his money back.
But that's his fault. He threw it out. He was supposed to get his money back. He threw his money in the garbage.
By
Freed the slave.
emancipating.
Yeah.
That's also thought he gets the world.
He gets the world to come.
Yeah. Why did he do that? Why would he do that? That's betterment of the world.
No, betterment of the world is so that this person that was, some people think he's free, is still being worked as a slave. That was the problem. So we forced the first master to free him. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Aimer, Einay Kaisev Elam Meshacher Kaisev. The slave doesn't owe any money. It's only the one that freed the slave that owes the money. That means the second master, the creditor, is the one that owes the money because he's the one that freed the slave, and now he owed the money even before him as well, because when he was going to take the slave, he was going to have to pay back the extra value. My kamiflagi, what are they arguing about? They're arguing about a loss that isn't noticeable. I think the loss over here is the fact that he frees the slave that he wasn't really. How does it say it by you? Is the loss the fact that he frees a slave, which causes that we should, for the betterment of society? Where the value of an item was lowered due to a change that occurred that is not noticeable in the physical properties of that item. In our cases, case of the Gemara, it is as if the creditor inflicted damage that is not evident by bringing about a situation where the master must emancipate the slave. Yes, so that's a hezek shein nikah. He brought about a situation where now the first master has to free his slave. Is that considered a damage? Mar savar shmei hezek. One master says that it's considered a damage. Mar savar le shmei hezek. Other master says it's not considered a damage. Question is, does he have to pay for? Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that the second master has to pay because he holds that it's considered a damage. Yeah. Remember that book, Rabbi Joselman of Rosheim? Marcus Lehman book, two little volumes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
This one you took.
In there,
It's like a complete library.
in that book, there was a conversation. This Rabbi Joselman is like the super Jew. He flies, he shows up every place where there's a problem, and he saves the city. And anyway, so one of the cases, there was someone that wanted to burn the Gemara. He thought that it was, they should get rid of all the Gemaras. It was, his name was Pfefferkorn. That was a Meshumad. He was a Jew that became a Christian. So he was telling the church.
His previous name was
Anyway, Rabbi Joselman shows up, and he's they're gonna have this debate. And part of the conversation was, what is hezek shein nikah? So he says, yeah, that's what these Jews do. They damage someone else's property and then they cover it over and no one can see it. He says, no, that's not what it means. Hezek shein nikah means the type of damage that it's an invisible damage, like you contaminate someone's produce or something. It looks the same, not that they damage and then cover it over. Anyway.
So it's invisible. It's still down. You damaged it.
No, but it's not a visible damage. It's like
down.
you pour someone's wine for an idol, so it becomes not usable, but you can't tell the difference when you look at it.
We have that's not for show, and the ladies were all
Right.
So that's down.
That's a hezek shein nikah. That's a discussion. Hezek shein nikah. That's a machlekes here. The Tanakama and Reb Shimon. So if it's a Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that the person has to pay for that such a damage. Tanakama says no. Ula, the Gemara says, Ula, my time Rav. Why did Ula learn the Mishnah entirely different than Rav? Rav said that we were talking about the first master set the slave free. Ula says the second master set the slave free. Why do you have to do that? The second master doesn't even own the slave. Amalach, Sheni, Rabbi, Karislay. according to Rav, when it says, Chifen es rabbi ba'isais ben chayren. Who is the rabbi? It says we forced the master, according to Rav. The first master was the one that set the slave free. The second master needs to set the slave free as well, because we don't want him to say, you're my slave, and really he's a free person. So, but do you say do you call him a master? He's not the master at all. He was never acquired the slave. So obviously, it's not, when you're calling him the master, it must be that the first master never set the slave free. It must be the second one that set him free. Rav, my time, why doesn't Rav say like Ula? Yeah, Ula had a good point. When it says that the second master sets him free, the second master can set him free. You never even owned him yet. He can't set him free. It's just a fake. It just looks like he's setting. So how can you call him the Meshacher? So therefore, Rav says it must be the first master to set him free. Okay, Itmar. We have a statement. Someone makes a field in a paitike, which means that he can only collect his debt exactly from this field. So Reuven says to Shimon that I owe you money, you're going to collect only from this field. The Shatfa Nar, and the river comes and ruins the whole field. So Ami Shapir Noah, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Ami Shapir Noah sounds like he's very good looking. Ami, the good looking, what do they call him there? Shapir Noah, you say the Hebrew?
Pleasingly handsome.
Pleasingly handsome. Says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, the rule is you can't collect from anywhere else. This was the place where you collect. That's it. Avua de Shmuel Amar, Shmuel's father. We don't know his name, but we call him Avua de Shmuel. He says, you collect from other places.
It says in the translation, there's two types of apothecates. Apothecate stammer, apothecate mefarish. So usually we think apothecates mefarish designate this
Right.
and only this, like half. But he's saying here it was an apothecate stammer, meaning it was a non-restricted field. Even though he said this one, he should still be able to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, it must be.
One's exclusive and one's not.
So it's a machlekes if this is exclusive.
Exclusive one.
Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Mishum da Ami Shaper Noahu Amar Shmaited Le Shapiran. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says it's ironic that his name is that he's pleasantly handsome, and he says statements that are not so pleasantly handsome. Targum Shmaite. So we have to translate. Must be that he was talking about when it was exclusive. That this is the only place where you can collect from. And Avud Shmuel wasn't saying that, but then there would be no machlekes. Tanya Nami Hachi. It's also a brisa. Someone makes his field into an apaitike. That means that this is where you collect from collateral. Shatfanar, and the river overflows it. You collect from the other properties that the person has. But if he said that this is exclusively where you can collect from, you can't collect from anywhere else. Tanya Yidach, you have another brisa. Someone makes it an apaitike, his field an apaitike for someone that he owes money to, his creditor, and also for his wife for the ksuba. She gets divorced or if he passes away. Even Mishar Nechasim, they can collect from other places as well. Shimon ben Gamliel Aimer, Balchayv Gam Mishar Nechasim. Shimon ben Gamliel says that the Balchayv can collect from other places. However, Isha Eina Gam Mishar Nechasim, the woman only collects from this. Why? Shein Darker Shlisha Lachzar al Batidinim. Because in order to collect from other places, you have to go to court and you have to see what property used to belong to him, and then you have to chase it around. It was sold, and then it was resold, and you have to follow it around. He says the woman should not have to go through that process. She's just going to get from what was exclusively designated, but maybe it wasn't considered exclusively designated. But what was designated, and the Balchayiv can go to the court and he can get from other places.
This concept of the woman we learned before also, and the difference between her and the heirs of that they could go to court or something, but I don't remember.
Right. We had something about the daughters. If there wasn't enough money, so the daughters take whatever money there is, and the sons go to collect. So you
Something
don't want to
like, there
send the
was a
daughters
difference
to.
between men and
Right.
women.
Mishnah says, "Misha chetzav eved v'chetzav ben chayrin." Someone, let's say there were two brothers that owned a slave because they inherited the slave from the father, so now they become partners. Or there are two partners that bought a slave, and one of the partners sets him free. Says, "You're fine to go. You're good to go." He gives them the document. So this fellow has a job like this. One day he works for master, which means he doesn't get paid. And then one day he gets paid. That's what Basil says. Bishami says, Kantem es Rabbi, you figured out a situation for the master. Like the Kantem, but you didn't figure out a solution for the slave. Lisa Shifcha, you want him to marry a maidservant. Can't marry a maidservant because he's partially free. You can't marry a free person because part of him is a slave. What should he do? He should never get married. The world was created to be fruitful and multiply. The world wasn't created to be desolate. It was created to be settled. What they do to fix the society. We forced the second master to make him free. And he writes a document that he's going to owe half of his value. And Basil changed their mind and they pass like Beishamai. Okay, let's leave this for this afternoon. We'll learn this afternoon. We'll see how far we can go.
He said free, but anybody get compensated? The guy who didn't want the brother didn't want to free him. Why did the second brother free the guy?
Because in order so that he should be able to get married.
He loses.
But the slave is going to owe, he's going to have to pay it back. What's it called? The indentured.
He can marry the girl anyway.
He can marry, and then but he has a debt that he has to pay up.
What do you mean you're going to learn in the afternoon?
It's going to be probably not 8:30. It'll probably be about 8:45, 8:50, because they start learning after Ma'ariv. We'll get in about
Learning. So
40
you're going to have
minutes.
Daf Yomi tonight?
Yeah, we'll try to catch up a little bit. There's cholent there if you want. If that brings you. I can't get it over the Zoom. Sorry, I can't. There's something wrong here. I'm not able to hear.
Okay. No, I didn't know about it. That's all. Okay.